there, boys and girls, what's happening? Thanks for stopping back into the channel today, right here at the Rust Belt Mechanic. As you guys can see here, we've got the big old badass side-by-side project here back into the shop. Today we're just going to be doing some maintenance things. A lot of guys have been asking me on what is the maintenance schedule and recommendations for a lot of these machines now that people have seen some of their failure points and seeing what Can-Am also recommends at certain points. So we're going to be going through that today. After that, we got some big upgrades coming down the road, so stay tuned. So I've been putting a whole bunch of miles on the side-by-side. It's been an awesome machine so far, and we're going to be taking care of a lot of the maintenance things that are required at this point. Right now I've got right around 1,000 miles on it and just shy of 50 hours. So what BRP recommends for some of the more severe service time is to do your maintenance, oil change and everything at about 50 hours, especially for the initial break-in period on it. So we're going to be doing that today. We've got our oil change set up here, 540 synthetic oil change kit from BRP, as well as all of our fluids that are needed and necessary for changing out the fluids in our front differential, rear diff, gearbox and everything. We're going to be working on that one. Also ended up picking up a specialty tool off of Amazon so we can grease our wheel bearings. Evidently that is a major failure point for some of these Can-Am Maverick X3s. Today we're going to be removing the wheels, taking the hubs all off and apart, and using this special tool to be able to grease all of our wheel bearings. So first things first, let's get this thing up in the air, be able to show you guys where the drain points and everything are. Start off on the oil change. So here we are underneath the machine, and BRP does a great job skid plating this thing up underneath. However, they don't make these things on bolt, which I don't see why not. A lot of these guys like to run all kinds of aftermarket things and everything along the bottom side of the car, so why not make these things removable with some bolts? But no, they put a bunch of rivets in here. So that kind of sucks right there. And unfortunately, we need to get through this one little hole right here. It's an oblong hole. About 3 inches in front of where the shock would mount on the control arm, and there are 2 plugs up in there. One is going to be, I believe one's a 10 millimeter and the other one's like a 17 or an 18 millimeter, but they're, you know, a good bit, about 5 or 6 inches up above the skid plate, and they're just in a crap area. And of course, whenever you guys take these plugs out, they are going to spill all over the skid plate and make a huge mess, which not a good thing at all. So let's see what I'm talking about here. So you get my SP floodlight put up into this area, facing up into that area, and you can see that there are 2 bolts right there. You can see the 10 millimeter and then the larger plug bolt right there. So those are the 2 that we're going to be removing right there to be able to drain all the oil out of the bottom of the crankcase. Now, what we're going to be able to do to catch all that is got a stubby wide oil filter. You can either have one of these or you can get one of those ones that are kind of collapsible, because you got to fold it down to about that to be able to fit it in up into the engine bay area in there. And then I'm going to kind of put that into place, and you're going to see the little nipple come out right in this area. Loosen those 2 nuts up, and then I'm going to stick my hand in from this side to remove the nuts and hopefully drain all out through our funnel and not make a big mess. And the big one definitely is a 17 millimeter. So we're just gonna kind of break that one loose just a hair, enough to where we can then get it out by hand. And then the 10, also same way, that. And now we're gonna get our funnel put into place. Pop it right down into that area. And get our catch can, and then start pulling out these 2 bolts. Try to without burning myself, at least. Of course, I've gotten this thing nice and warm already, so there we go. That's the big bolt out, at least. Look at that. Came out just nicely. not even making a mess on the skid plate or anything. There we go. And then we got our 10 out as well. And then obviously you want to do this while your machine is a little bit on the warm side, at least been running for a couple of minutes, not scalding hot. Obviously you're going to burn the crap out of yourself, but you want to be able to have it warm so this oil drains out easier for you. So we'll let it drain here for about 5 minutes, get those plugged back up, and then we'll check out the oil filter on the top side. Now what you're going to want to be wary of is when you take these two plugs out of the bottom of the motor, you got your little 10 mil one here, it's going to have a little copper washer, and then you've got your main drain plug with the magnet inside of that one. That one's got this silver washer right here. The new kit does come with brand new washers for that, but you're going to want to make sure that these do not stay stuck up on the block. This copper one was actually stuck up on the block for me, so I needed to make sure you grab some kind of a little hook tool here to go up in there and make sure you grab that out, because you do not want to double gasket that. You will have a leak on there. So we're going to get our new washers put onto our bolts and get our bolts back installed, and then we'll get to putting our oil filter in. Now we're ready to torque these back down. When you torque down the magnetic drain plug, the 17 mil, that one's going to be torqued to 22 foot-pounds. When you torque down your 10 mil, the smaller drain plug, that one's torqued down to 11 foot-pounds. Now we're going to get into replacing the oil filter, and that is going to be that little assembly right here on the top side of the motor. You can see where we are kind of generally to everything else. It's got 3 screws retaining the cap into it. Those are each going to be 8 millimeter there, and then that cap will pop right up off of there. All right, now when you take your cap off, it's going to have some oil inside of there, and then don't forget you are going to have an O-ring that's going to be either stuck to the cap or sitting right there as well. Make sure you get that up off of there, and then you're going to be able to pry our oil filter right here up out of the little housing area. I'm going to let it drain there for just a second, because you will probably make a little bit of a mess, but we'll get her out right there. Right now we've got our new oil filter that we're just going to slide right down into place there, kind of give it a good press down in there, and then we're going to want to make sure our surface where our screws go into cleaned off nicely there. We don't want to have any kind of debris from all around here falling down into that housing either. Then we're going to grab our oil filter housing cap here, put our new O-ring that comes in on the kit here real quick. There we go, just like so. It's going to just kind of go right around the outside ring there, and then we're going to pop it back on over in this area. And then after you put these 8s into place, these are going to torque down to right between 7 and 8 foot-pounds. Alright, so now we've got our light repositioned. Now we are on the driver's side of the vehicle, and you can see right in there, this is where our oil fill and check position is. All you're going to be able to do is unscrew that little oil check cap. It's got a little dipstick as part of it, and that's where we're going to fill the engine from. It's going to take 3.7 quarts of it. The kit comes with 4, so not quite all of the 4th quart is going to be able to go into that, but we'll get that one filled up real quick. Now, of course, after you get your oil all filled into the unit, you're going to want to check the oil level. Start the unit up, let it run for about 20-30 seconds or so, get kind of circulated through, shut it off, then check your oil level at the dipstick. Should be good to go there. So now let's start in on draining our diffs. Now we're going to go on to servicing the rear diff unit. Got it back up in the air. Here under our rear skid plate, there's 3 bolt openings. The middle one is a little bit oblong, and the bolt for the drain is literally right there. Going to be 17 millimeter. I'm going to break that one free and drain out our diff fluid, gearbox oil, whatever you want to call it, from the rear here. There we go. This one should also have a magnet on the end of your drain plug, so we can see if we have any like major chunks or anything like that, which doesn't seem like we're gonna have anything major or anything on there. A couple little shavings here and there, but nothing too major. Now we're needing to fill our rear gearbox here, and this is gonna be our fill port right here. This is gonna be a 17 millimeter also, so good thing of Can-Am to actually make things, you know, pretty universal. So this also has your dipstick check tube here for your rear gearbox and diff as well. So that's where we're going to be filling that one. Differential fluid on this one is going to be 75/140. Pick that one up from BRP, and it is going to take 1.25 quarts, right around there. So I'm going to look into that one, get it filled, and make sure that's what it takes. Now up to the area for our front differential. In this little hole right here in the middle, we've got looks like a 5 millimeter Allen is what we're going to get this drain plug out here real quick with. Get the front diff drained. One doesn't look as bad as I thought some of them would look. A lot of the guys online were saying how horrible and metallic their front differential fluid would look the first time they changed it. And I would have to say that this one's not really all that horrible. It's fairly clear looking there. Not seeing any kind of metallic shavings inside of there. I'd say overall it's not too bad at all. So we'll finish letting this one get drained out, and then we'll lower it down a little bit and get to the fill port. Now your fill point for the front differential unit's in kind of a hard spot to get to. Here in the front end of the unit, you can see right there in front of the front axle, there's a little opening. It has one of these little plugs right here. Had a little piece of blue tape over it, I guess for, you know, some kind of security reason, but it is a 8 millimeter hex to be able to get that one out. So we got that one out of the way. Now we're just going to pump some new fluid in there. I've got one of my Matco fluid pumps to be able to put it into there. If not, I would recommend that you get your fill unit here with the little cone spout, cut the tip off, and then just put a piece of like washer hose or something like that onto it to be able to squeeze it to get it down into that tight area. Then all you got to make sure is that the fill plug is all tightened back on there. The fluid should just come out right below the lower portion of the threads there, so shouldn't be too bad. Get the drain plug back on, and then on to the last final part of our maintenance portion of this, and this is greasing all of the grease zerks. This thing has quite a few of them. As you can see, each one of the control arm mounts in the front, so the uppers have one there and one there. Lowers have one on each side as well. Some of your mounts for your shocks have them. Your sway bar bushings, they've got it in there on the bushing portions of it, so make sure you get those all lubed up. Any of the other ball joints or anything out at the end, make sure you get those lubed and get everything all nice and greased. Don't over grease it though. So when you're putting grease into these things, make sure it's just coming out enough to the point where it's just starting to come out of the bushing. I'll get this first one on film just so you guys can have a good idea of that. There we go. You can see it's just starting to come out the outside edges along the bushing there, and that's all the more you really need. After getting those grease zerks all greased up, all your suspension all lubed and everything, make sure you guys, of course, check your tire pressure, check your air filter. This one I had already checked it prior on after I got back from the sand dunes, because anytime you go into the sand, you got to check your air filter afterwards because it gets plugged up like nobody's business. So make sure you guys check that one out. Of course, everything else, give it all a visual inspection. Make sure your steering is correct and make sure your tires have good tread and everything. So that right there is about all we've got for you in the way of the 1,000 mile or 50-hour initial maintenance on the Can-Am Maverick X3 Turbo RR model. So if you guys have any other questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. I'll answer them the best I can. All the fluids I did end up getting from Ride 1 Powersports in Springfield, Ohio. So if you guys are in the Ohio region, they do a great job of getting me everything I need for the X3 at a great price. They do a great job, and their sales and support staff are extremely knowledgeable, especially when I don't know exactly what I'm doing or exactly what fluids I need for the X3. They came through on that one, so big thumbs up to them. I appreciate everyone tuning in today. There would have been one other thing that I would have probably added to the maintenance schedule, and that would have been lubing the wheel bearings, but that is going to be coming up in the very next video. We've got a big brake kit coming from Agency Power. Actually, it's already here, and we're going to be putting it on very next, so you guys make sure you want to stay tuned to that one. It's going to be an amazing time. The brakes on this thing, naturally on the X3, are absolutely horrendous. Stopping distance is like 240 feet. It's something stupid like that. So make sure you guys stay tuned to that one. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and turn on that bell notification so you get notified when I come out with cool, awesome content, just like this one here today. Appreciate you guys tuning in, and as always, you guys stay awesome.